Hello, Internet. So it's a new day. I got rubber on me. I've been cutting sway bar bushings off. And it's a new day. Recovering from the fiasco of previous, I'm going to split it up into videos. Previous videos, rear shock debacle. So we'll get into that later with that video. I'm working on the front. Front should go much easier. There's not as much cutting or anything. I got to grind a couple places to weld up the lower control arm skids. But so on the front, had tire signs that one shock's bad. Haven't taken the shocks off yet to check, so don't know. And could physically see that one of the sway bar bushings was bad. The bar had way too much slop inside the bushing. So the bushing's worn out. It's not, happens. Well, in Chrysler's wonderful wisdom, I guess the same mentality was applied to a Wrangler meant to go off-roading, built as a purpose off-roader. They'd vulcanized the frame bushings, the sway bar to frame bushings, to the sway bar, much like they did in my wife's Grand Cherokee. In the Grand Cherokee, okay, off-roading is a secondary option. And I know a lot of these Wranglers are mall crawlers, don't get me wrong, but that it's just a stupid decision. And it goes into right to repair issues. I mean, the big right to repair issues are always the electronics and software side and how the computers are interacting with each other. But stupid stuff like this, you go to Chrysler because you need a $20, $10, $20, $30 pair of sway bar to frame bushings. And they go, oh, sorry, man, by the way, that's a $500 sway bar because it's built onto the sway bar. That's a right to repair issue. They're trying to price people out of repairing their own vehicles. Okay, soapbox done. So let's see what we're working with today. Had these bushings laying around. They're the right ID for the bar. They're polyurethane. They have a number. No, there you go. That's just a manufacturer marking. Okay, they don't have a number. I don't know. I used to work in a fleet service, and whenever somebody would retire and all their junk started to get passed around, you would find, sway bar bushings, chassis parts, brake pads, whatever, just laying around in lockers and workbenches and stuff. So I got these. I'm going to make them work. At sway bar down, as stated, I have cut sway bar bushings off. We're going to be doing control arm drop brackets, correction brackets. Sorry about the anti-focus. There we go. And I had pressure washed this. I guess I just didn't do a good job. New shocks that go through and grease everything while we're here. And I need to check the brake caliper, not so much this side, pads are still good. I need to check the one on the other side because it was dragging the other day when I drove it. So I need to address that. And I'm also going to put a steering stabilizer on it. I have one over there. And I have it. This one's a little beat up. And yeah, I do drive the vehicle. It's just been raining a lot. I live in Ohio and it's springtime. I don't know. Can we see anything? Can we focus? These brake pads are still good. I'm hoping this one did it to me a handful of years ago, and it was this caliper, and you could smell it. You could get out, touch the rim. The rim was significantly hotter than any of the other ones. And it ended up being a lubrication issue. I took everything out. I re-lubricated all the parts, cleaned them up, lubricated them, put it all back together. And it's been, 3, 4, it was before I moved. So 3 years, just about. So, if that's all it is, that's all it is. That'll be great. But back to the bar. That'll be easy. I might have to trim up. I was test fitting them in the brackets. And these are pretty deeply grooved here, so I might have to trim some of this down to get them into the bracket properly. But they did fit reasonably well. So I'm going to get on to doing that and figure out what I got. All right, so this is what we end up with. It's the original bushing. You can see where I had to cut it to get it off the bar. Again, it's vulcanized, it's on the bar. This is the bushings I had laying around. They're obviously not right. This ridge has to be trimmed down significantly. And this is the result. Fits the bracket reasonably well, does what I need it to do. It'll compress down, and most importantly, it's the right size for the bar. So now, it looks like I put a Smurf through a meat grinder. I got to do it again to get the other one ready, but it's doable. Again, I don't know the part number on these. I've had these. They were found in a shop years ago, and I've just never gotten rid of them because I'm a parts hoarder. I'm sure that there's an aftermarket out there. I didn't even look anything up on these. It just happened to be one of those. I noticed the sway bar bushing had started to go bad, and I went into my pile and went, okay, I got something that'll work, and that was as far as I went. So I'm sure there's an aftermarket fix for it. This is just stupid. I don't know what's going on. Well, I do know what's going on, but all right, back to the fun stuff. All right, so the passenger front shock is out. These shocks are a bit annoying. If I remember right, like the FSM has you pulling out panels and stuff so that you can get tools down in there. I think you gotta take out the fuse box, and I don't ever do that. I just reach in there, focus. I just reach in there and fight with it inside of that little pocket. It's terrible, but it happens. And this one, this one doesn't have a good nut on it. It just has that bullshit, what is it, that double D shank at the top of there. Sorry, it's not there. Maybe, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So I use these style vice grips. Good warning though, if you're going to use vice grips, which isn't usually the best idea, but if you're going to use vice grips, because you have to, get it as far up the piston shaft as you can possibly get it, because you should never have the piston collapse all the way into the cylinder, so there's no threat of it damaging the seal. Get a good clamping type of vice grip. These have a funky jaw on them. I call them a parrot jaw. That's probably not right, but that's just what I've called it. They work great for cylinders, and also I put a mark and I use a reference point. I use that big punch out. So I line the mark up so that my mark sits up and down on the piston shaft in alignment with that. So every time I turn stuff, I always make sure that mark is there, and that gives me a good visual reference as to whether or not the piston shaft is turning, or if I'm just fighting corrosion and stuck nut and silly things like that. But yeah, I mean, vice grip isn't ideal. It's okay when you're gutting them and replacing them, but it's not ideal. And yeah, it would have been nice. I believe these should be the shocks that came. This is a Rubicon Express lift kit. These are the shocks that came with it. Now I was happy to see Rancho welds in a nice big nut that'll go under the bushing washer assembly. And that is a big plus right there. That's very nice. I did get sway bar bushings are in, lubricated, gooped up, holes all cleaned up, everything's anti-seized. So that project worked out. Let's see, I got to move over here. I got to loosen both control arms so they're kind of flibbity flobbity, and then get the bracket in. And let's see, I'll do brake clean and lubrication and chassis grease once I get both sides done. That'll be last. I'll get everything else in and done first. I don't want to be fighting that stuff. I just don't want to grease it up now. You always get a little bit of grease squeezes out, and then you got to lay in it or goop in it or something. So back to work. All right, so I've been fighting with this control arm bracket for longer than I want to admit, and the top mount goes in and fits fine, no problems. The bottom mount lines up but gets cattywampus. And these were assembled units. They aren't like the weld together ones or anything like that. They're Ranchos, near as I can tell. I forgot who I bought them from. I threw the package away. I looked around, and Rancho has the same style up here, so I'm using their instruction set. Anyway, once it got in here, there was massive interference with the lower bracket on the truck. And no, the truck has never been in an accident, and it has never had any bad four-wheel drive collisions or anything like that. And the last thing you really want to do is go grinding and tweaking and modifying, control arm brackets, suspension brackets, things like that. But I had to take, you can see the grind over here. I had to take about an 1/8 inch all the way out, and it's still very tight, but I can get it in. I also had to radius up through here. I had to radius this edge over a bit, as it was interfering with the way the chassis bracket, it kind of cups around this pocket, so it's dimensionally curved this way. It's got a lot going on. So like I said, ended up losing about an 1/8 inch, because you can see this divot here where they put this brake in it. There was one identical to it here where this brake is, and yeah, I took the metal all the way down past that indent, just a smidge. Obviously there's probably nothing wrong with it, but other than the fact that it was, maybe I got a Monday Friday unit, it's misaligned. But it's a hell of a thing trying to get this done. And on the ground, can you see? Yeah, I'm on stands and everything, but it ain't comfortable. So I think I got it this time. It was a little tight a minute ago, but I could get the bolt to come through this time. And so I took it back out. I took just another smidge off, re-radius this. I'm going to throw a little bit of paint on it, shove it back in the hole, and call it a day. Well, at least call this part of it done. I want to get the brackets and stuff. Wanted to get the brackets and stuff on there, but I don't know. I'm getting old, I guess, but yeah, I think it's about time for a long break on this. So let's get this side in, see where we're at. Okay, so it's all back together. I'm in a little better mood than I was at that clip. I really, really hate buying stuff where you think you're getting, I don't know. I really hate buying brand new stuff, especially chassis things, and then having to modify them so that they fit and work properly. It's just not, I don't know. I feel like sometimes I totally get why I just go straight to eBay, and it's like, okay, what's the cheapest thing I can find? Because I'm going to have to screw with it no matter what. I might as well not spend 3 times as much on it if I'm going to have to dick with it to begin with. It's just me. It's my personal opinion. I'm a little grumpy. I'm tired. I'm hot. It's the middle of the day. I'm supposed to be doing something else. It's fine. It's whatever. But it's all back in. Let's go take a look. See what we got. All right. Shocks in. Fits. Everything is... everything's anti-seized. Everything's torqued. I did cheat. Again, I had a hell of a time getting that bolt to go in. That's the area that was causing the problems. Where the new bracket bolts into the frame, you are supposed to torque those bolts. You should. Please, actually torque those bolts. I ugga-dugga them in because I ugga-dugga them in. I still have to do grease. Still have to pull a caliper and lube it. I figure I'm going to do both of them. I need to check the track bar. I checked the back track bar the other day. I need to check the track bar, and I'm going to start pulling this guy out. But that's where we're at. Everything seems to be, it's rolling. At least now I know what to do for the other side. Maybe it'll go a little smoother. Looks like I need new bump stops soon. That one's seen better days. So, yep, quit talking. We'll get back to work. Okay, and new day, back on stuff. This side's going, I'm on the driver's side now. This side's going much more smoothly. After spending all that time fighting on the passenger side to make the bracket fit, I knew how to trim this bracket, and it all just went in with no fight, no hassle. It's nice. There'll be some bulk footage in there. I'm pretty sure I said it the other day. You know, this video is split up. I'm all over the place. It's what it is. But where these brackets bolted to the frame, you should torque the bolts, those bolts. So essentially you'll have 6 bolts to torque, depending on how you do it. Now, I didn't loosen the bolt at the control, at the actual axle on the lower control arm at all. But, you know, if you take all 4 of the original bolts out, or at least loosen all 4 of the original bolts, plus the 2 new bolts that you have to add for the bracket, you really should torque all of those. I am only going to torque the brackets at the actual control arm mounts. That's my personal preference. You do you. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm sure there's a million people that'll be like, oh, the car is going to roll over and you will die. Just do what works for you and is safe and keeps you and the people that are going to be riding along with you or next to you from getting killed. Okay? So just do what you're going to do. Also remember, when you torque them, make sure that the suspension is loaded. That's why they always tell you put tires on and have it on the ground, just sitting on the weight with the tires and everything. If you support the vehicle by the axles under the springs, or at least under the axles, you know, because springs are, but anyway, if you support it so that the whole weight is pushing down on the springs still, you can do it with the tires off and everything like that. It's just loading the suspension up. Let's look and see what we got here. Oh, I have not gone through and torqued any of this yet. You can't see nothing in that shot. Oh, we got that bolt lined up. I'm gonna zip it in, but not tight. That bolt's in. I can't see nothing. Those guys are in. All right. This shock, this driver's side, this shock was bad. The only one of the four that was actually bad, and it makes sense because that's the one we were seeing tire damage on. This caliper, like I said, was starting to smell and heat up. And when I went and was checking everything the other day, this one is seized. It's locked up. A couple years ago, I got away with just relubing everything. It was seized up in the slide. This one, the piston's seized in it. So I ordered 2 new calipers, brand new Ray Bestis, the best in brakes. I love that jingle. Never gets old. I already put the passenger side one on. I got to put this one on. And then I need to weld up my LCA skids. I think I'm going to do next. I think the caliper is not going to be... Well, actually, I'm going to torque these bolts next. And then hopefully I'll set up the bolt camera. And we'll get some footage of me trying to operate my welder. It ought to be just as amusing as when I was trying to operate the plasma cutter. And we'll pick this video up somewhere. I don't know where. well, I wasn't smart enough to bring a camera under here, or a light under here with me, but behold my welds of horror. Can you see in there? Yeah. I am most definitely a grinder, not a welder. I need practice, and I don't practice. That's the only way I'm ever going to get better, is if I practice, and I just don't practice. But for what these are, that should hold up. I need to throw some paint on them. I need to get caliper and the shock on that side. I need to come through and grease everything, and I got to get steering stabilizer back on. I went ahead and replaced it. I had one laying around, and the one that I took off, it was the original Chrysler, but it was kind of banged up from over the years. And I don't think the piston shaft was bent, but the guard around it was most definitely beat up pretty bad. So it's going to get a new one of those. Well, we got paint, steering stabilizer, shock absorber, brake caliper. Got to bleed the brakes, and then I got to get to the rear on this side. You can't see it. I'm not going to squirm like that. Got to get to the rear on this side and do all that. No, thank you, air compressor. All right, and the front's on, greased. Even managed to get calipers bled, so just put the tires back on, get the front end on the ground. We'll be rotating the tires, because like I say, this is the driver, and it had tire issues. Now I get onto that, which is going to be, I don't know, it's going to be what it is. Let's see. All right, and yeah, that completes the front end extravaganza that is working on this thing. I can't remember if I said it before or not. The upper control arm axle side mount on the driver's side is kind of tricky to get to torque it. And what I found worked best was a 3-inch extension with a short socket. I don't like using extensions on torque wrenches, but when you have to, make sure it's as short as possible. If you don't want to use an extension, maybe if you have a flex head torque wrench, I'm pretty sure Strap-on's got one of those. If not, if you take the steering down on this side, if you take it off the spindle and off the gearbox, it's practically a straight shot in. I did not want to do that, but you do you. That's about it. Anything else that was kind of sketch run into? Nah, just those brackets. So those are Rancho brackets. I found like eBay knockoff versions. And I think I'll leave a link to those. They were like half the price. And if you're going to end up with fitment issues where you're going to have to grind and paint and do stuff, buy the inexpensive ones and work up. You know, what's the worst that's going to happen with the inexpensive ones? You might have to add a couple of welds or something along those lines. But if you buy a name brand and it's sketchy and finicky, might as well just buy the cheap ones and deal with it. Yeah, a headache's a headache. It doesn't matter what's giving it to you, right? Other than that, though, you know, straightforward job. Highly recommend it. It's awesome. I'm sure, you know, because I didn't torque 4 bolts out of 6 on each, or 2 bolts out of 6 on each side, they'll and the car will spontaneously combust driving down the highway. The world will stop spinning and poles will shift, because that's the internet's reaction to anything. So, you know, get out, have fun, do something you like, and laugh at my mistakes. That's the best thing you can do.